Good evening, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this is your Red Pill News. Hope everyone's having a lovely day. We've got quite the show for you tonight, a whistleblower roundtable with Zak Vorhies, Google whistleblower, and John Carman, the government whistleblower. He's got quite a story to tell. We're going to go through a quick message from my sponsor, and we'll be right back after that. Everybody sit back, grab your popcorn.
With common threats nowadays in America, such as EMPs, North Korea, major earthquakes in California, destabilization in the Middle East and Iran, the future of America and the stability of its power grid are not promised, and neither is your safety. One of the best things you can invest in for your family's protection if the lights go out is a solar power bank. And why not purchase one of the best solar banks on the market, the Patriot Solar Bank? You'll never waste money on batteries again. The Patriot Power Bank is solar powered. With a dual USB port, you can charge up to 2 devices at once. You can charge your phone anywhere, anytime with the solar powered USB port. Users have reported this solar bank to be an all-in-one lifesaver and wouldn't go anywhere without it. It's lightweight but very durable, compact but great for handling all emergencies. The Patriot Power Bank is the perfect gift for you and your family. Limited supplies last, and this is the very last chance to get yours at a discount before they sell out. So take advantage now and give you and your family the gift of power anywhere in the world. Just visit www.patriotsolarbank.com and use code REDPILL15 to get 15% off.
All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Just want to say, if you do want to support the channel, you can always do that through the links in the description below. Any of the super chats, I really appreciate too. We've got people from all over the world already here. I see Alaska, Florida, Oregon, Dallas, Arkansas, Minnesota. I saw Montreal earlier, Oklahoma, Southern Illinois, Brandon, Mississippi. People from everywhere, guys. Well, listen, I hope that you're ready for a wonderful conversation. We have with us tonight as the inimitable Zak Vorhies, the Google whistleblower, and also John Carman. You guys, thank you so much for being here tonight. How are you?
Hey, we're really good. I've been talking to a lot of people since we've last talked, and one of the interesting people that I've talked to is John, and he's got a very interesting story. And so I introduced him to you, and I wanted to share his story for tonight.
Awesome. Well, we're very grateful for that. John, how are you tonight, sir?
Oh, good. I'm glad you guys got me on. Thanks, Zach and Red Pill, Mr. Red Pill, right?
You can just say RP, Red Pill. Any of those
RP,
are fine.
RP.
RP
works. Good, RP. Sounds like one of those millionaire names, RP, you know?
Far from it. We've already got a couple of super chats. I need to just say thank you to Syllabor, hello from Indiana, and Ryan McAdams, where we go one, we go all. God bless all of you. Thank you very much for that. So, Zach, I wanted to get an update from you. What has happened since the last time you were on the program? You've been on a lot of programs since then, and I was hoping that by this point, maybe you would have had the opportunity to speak with somebody in government, or maybe I would have seen you testifying on C-SPAN or something like that. But as far as I know, none of that's happened.
As far as you know. I can't really discuss what has been going on because there is a ton of silence, but there are big things that are happening. But there has been a lot of things that have been happening since the last time I was on your show. And so I kind of wanted to go through them from my Twitter feed.
Please.
France orders Google to pay $1.1 billion for tax fraud. This is reported by Robert Epstein from UPI.com. The Wall Street Journal had an exclusive saying that the government orders Google's to let employees speak out about workplace issues. This is a really interesting story because there is a Google whistleblower right now by the name of Kevin Cernicki, and he submitted a bunch of, he submitted a complaint to the National Labor Board, and it's under seal by an arbitrator. And it seems that the story is indicating that that information may become public information. So obviously it's not public yet, and we have more on this story developing. So let's see, what else do we have? So Google said that it had made changes to its search algorithm to give an advantage to original reporting. I had originally reported that this was a good thing, but then I quickly found out from the community that what it was likely doing was preventing stories that were commenting on other stories from appearing. So let's say a New York Times runs a piece and someone has commentary about the New York Times. That commentary could be deboosted.
Okay.
Yeah.
They've actually, that's something they've been working on over the last couple of years. I don't know if anybody in the audience remembers, but reaction videos used to be huge on YouTube. You turn on, your YouTube feed and it would just be full of people reacting to other people. And now it seems like that has been getting less and less and less. I'm sure that you read the article that came out last weekend, which discussed the deboosting elements that they had put into play to kind of squish channels like my own. I was even on the list. And one of the things that they said they were trying to do was to, push out fake news, what they considered to be fake news. So I would have to imagine that anybody who's commenting on mainstream media sources, that's going to be included in that.
Yeah. Now, what's really interesting about this is that Steven Crowder has been on an absolute tweet storm with information about his deboosting. You can now go to YouTube and type in Steven Crowder Change My Mind, which is a series of videos that he's done.
Saw that.
And you can't find it. It's the videos that are popping up are videos about him or videos from other sites, but not videos from Steven Crowder himself. But if you use a VPN and you set your location to Spain, his videos pop up. And if you set your VPN to the UK, his videos pop up. His videos only do not pop up in the United States.
Wow. So
how interesting is that?
So commentary, if you're making commentary on the channels that YouTube doesn't like, then that's absolutely okay. I saw that myself. I tried it out. I think I had to go maybe like 10 pages deep before I found anything actually from Steven Crowder.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. I feel sorry for him. Like, what's he going to do? He's got no recourse on this other than to complain as loudly as he can on Twitter and hope that the mob gets Google to change, which it can. In fact, the biggest way that you can make a change at Google about your content page is by getting a Twitter mob to mass, comment and complain about, some sort of censorship that's happening. So
yeah. I actually saw that this past week. YouTube had sent me an email saying that I have a check mark saying that I am officially myself on YouTube because I had a lot of people that were taking my videos and re-uploading them. And so I'm verified on YouTube. Well, they said that because of their new rules in terms of what it means to be verified, that me, Thomas, a couple other people, we were going to be losing our check marks and we were no longer going to be verified. Well, a lot of people went on Twitter and did just what you described right there. They complained about this very issue, and I got another message saying that they had heard us and that if you already have your verification check mark, then you go ahead and you're going to keep it.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Like they came out and they were like, yeah, everyone who has a check mark can now lose it.
Yep.
And people were like, what? What the heck? What do you mean? What do you mean I'm becoming unpersoned? And then within later on that day, they're like, no, okay, we're not going to do that because of user complaints. And so it's kind of this like 2-step forward, 1 step back, like the speed at which they reversed the decision. Who knows whether that was pre-planned or whether that was legitimately in response to the amount of people complaining. It could be either one because the amount of YouTube content creators is absolutely ginormous.
Yeah, I would have to imagine there was probably going to be a lot of people that were going to be affected by that. So I didn't consider the fact that maybe they had planned it just as maybe a scare tactic, and then they give us a win, so it looks like we've actually been able to get something done. Because any time in the past that YouTube has announced that they're going to do something, they've just gone ahead and gone through with it. I've never seen it. It's in such a manner so that they came back and said, okay, guys, guess what? You can go ahead and keep it. Real quick, I just need to say thank you to Yeshua's Chosen. Says, God bless America. Do not be worried by what you see. Look by faith. Be not discouraged. Thank you for that. And then Western Sunrise says, mainstream is polluted. Tell AOC to clean it up. But before you go on, I forgot to mention at the very beginning, you guys, I did a T-shirt giveaway for my Patreons because I had already done one here for everybody else on the channel. And I just want to say that Jody was the winner, Jody LaDolce. I hope that you're listening, Jody. She already sent me her message with what T-shirt she wanted, so thank you for that. Also, Vivian, you are a winner. You know who you are. I need to get a message from you on Patreon so that I know what to send you out. And then also Flor Riccio. Flor Riccio was the third winner. So Flor and Vivian, if you can please send me a message in reply to my message on Patreon, and I can get you out your T-shirts. All right, so Zach,
does it have a red pill on the shirt?
You know what? There's a bunch of different designs. There's like my Red Pill 78 script. There's a couple with the dogs. There's one that says Vape Lives Matter. That's my favorite one.
Yeah, there was actually a vape, like don't make vaping illegal in DC today.
That's great. That's great because all they're going to do is destroy a bunch of American businesses. In my town, I probably have like 10 vape shops. And all of those vape shops, they're not going to be able to sell the product anymore. I mean, I guess that they're going to be able to sell the mods and stuff, but the money is in the vape.
Yeah, and the Juul CEO just quit, or he resigned like yesterday.
Wow.
Over all of this stuff that was happening. I guess he couldn't stop the torrent of regulation that was coming down. And you know what I found out today? I read this article that was saying that hydrogen cyanide was found in a bunch of black market vaping products.
Wow.
So it's looking like, what?
Don't buy black market.
Right. Well, I started to suspect this because they were like, oh my God, all these people are like getting hurt because of vaping. And I was like, I wonder if this is like some sort of like operation that's going on or negligence. And that turns out there's cyanide. Now, how does cyanide get into a vaping product?
I tend to think that maybe it's a conspiracy by the tobacco companies to put the vaping companies out of business. Someone asked if I had a new mod. No, I just have a backup mod in case I run out of batteries on this one. This is my day-to-day mod, and then this is my backup mod that's usually in the glove box.
Do you ever double fist it?
I haven't, but I will.
Or like one in each nostril, like as you like do the vaping. Yeah,
that's a little much.
That's a little much. Sorry, sometimes it's a little extreme.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. I read an excellent article in the New York Post, about this just kind of fervor that's come up over vaping. Hundreds of thousands of people die every year from smoking cigarettes, and nobody is out there saying ban cigarettes. Maybe there's a couple of select groups, but we're desensitized to it. Everybody expects people to smoke. It's a filthy habit. Don't do it. But you see it, and it happens, and people die from it. People are just like, whatever. Okay, like 7 people die, not from vaping nicotine, not from vaping product that is produced in a factory in a secure and sanitary environment. These are people who are smoking black market pods with marijuana vapor, okay, that have had an additive, a thickening agent, which is vitamin E added to it, and you say that they found hydrogen cyanide in it. But I tend to think that this is just this is a ruse. They want to get rid of vape because people are vaping; they're not smoking anymore. Nobody's dying from vaping. It's absolutely ridiculous.
You know how you can tell that this is an operation is that you now have the Twitter handle Tobacco-Free Kids going on a rampage trying to convince people not to vape. And so I go on and respond to their promoted ads, and I'm like, hey, Tobacco-Free Kids, vaping does your namesake.
Exactly.
Right? Like there's no tobacco in vaping. And I've known so many people that have given up smoking by switching to vape the idea that we need to get rid of vaping because like it's really a dangerous product is just absolutely absurd.
Somebody just mentioned many of the vaping products are owned by the tobacco industry. That's correct. The vaping products that you would buy at the gas station, which are right next to the cigarettes, I'm talking about mods, and I'm talking about vape juice that is not owned by Marlboro or Kraft or whatever it is, whoever owns it. You can look into that stuff. You can find it. There are plenty of them out there, and there are plenty of American companies which are going to go out of business. Bayou Swamp Juice, someone who has sent me some vapes, some people who watch the show, they're down in Louisiana. It's their bread and butter is they make custom vape juice. And if they're not able to do that anymore because it's outlawed here in America, then they're going to put that business out of business. And like I said, there's like 10 vape stores here in my hometown. There's, all these people, they're not going to need as many employees as they do. They're not going to be able to stock as much merchandise. They're not going to be able to make the same kind of daily money as they will if they're just selling the mods.
Are you really vaping the swamp?
It's not. They're down in Louisiana. It's a play on the Everglades, I think.
Gotcha.
The mod.
Okay, well,
the mod is the box. Keep going.
House antitrust panel seeks documents from 4 big tech firms.
Yeah, that's good.
House lawmakers are escalating their antitrust investigation of Silicon Valley. That was September 13th. Let's see. Alabama. So it was reported by someone responding to Dr. Epstein, and what it was this mystery of reason why Alabama and California were not joining the 50 U.S. states and territories in their antitrust probe of Google. And then someone responded, could it be that Alabama just had a Google data center built in their state?
Could be.
Yeah. This was really interesting. General Flynn put an emblem of the American flag on his Twitter page. And someone did a reverse image search of that emblem. And what Google returned was Nazi symbols.
It's disgusting.
But the reverse image search returned normal images for Bing and Yandex. So that was really, really interesting that only Google was not able to identify a flag emblem as an American flag, but as a Nazi flag.
I mean, that's typical, though, isn't that? I mean, that's the same thing that Google's been doing, since back in 2016. You would look for something in Google, and it would be completely different in Bing or in Yahoo, Yandex, any of those other search engines. It would give you accurate search results. Real quick, Flor Riccio, she did respond. She says, I sent you a message about my winning. I'll go ahead and check Patreon after this. Why are these lying Dems still in office? If conservatives did what Schiff did, they would have their heads on a platter. I hate the passiveness of the right. Great guests where we go one, we go all. I absolutely have to agree with you on some of this. I feel that part of the reason is because they want to do it correctly, okay? Everything that you see the Dems doing, they're lying, they're just making stuff up. They are trying to do things in an underhanded manner. But I have to believe that the conservatives, the people in Trump's administration who are actual patriots, want to go about this in the correct way. But it makes it even more difficult because you've got so many people in the swamp who are covering for the people doing these underhanded things on the left.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So continuing on, we have the Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Yeah.
They've had 300 million views, and they've been broadcasting the Donald Trump rallies for 4 years with no copyright or community violations. And YouTube just out of the blue took away their live streaming rights, effectively ending the channel.
Yep.
There might be an update on that. That was September 15th. On September 16th, President Trump indirectly referenced me in his campaign speech in New Mexico, which I thought was really awesome. He kind of got it right, but not really. He said the Google executive whistleblower that said that Google flipped a lot of votes for Hillary. So he basically combined Dr. Robert Epstein, myself, and Jen Janai, who got caught on video. That would be an interesting looking Hydra. Let's see. Da 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 da. So I had a poll saying Google is destroying traffic to websites featuring natural medicine, nutraceuticals, and CBD. Why is this happening? And 98% of nearly 600 votes said because Big Pharma wants it. So,
I have to agree.
So I have found out on September 18th that Monsanto paid Google to promote favorable search results.
Really?
Right? Makers of glyphosate. Yuck.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let's see. The verification stuff happened and then got rolled back partially. And then I posted something about a very serious topic, Google's use and selling of other people's trademarks for millions of dollars. So this is what's happening.
Yeah, elaborate.
So the CEO for Edible Arrangements is suing Google because what he's saying is Google has come out and started making millions of dollars off our name. This is a simple case. Google cannot take someone else's property, in this case, Edible's IP property, and sell it on the internet. Okay, now what exactly is happening is that Google is selling Edible Arrangements name, Edible Arrangements, to their competitors. And they're buying this trademarked name and that they're putting an ad at the top of the search results. So if Edible Arrangements wants to be at the top of the search results for its own name, it needs to pay Google a fee. And it needs to bid against the competitors that are trying to take the top spot. And in response, Google said, for trademark terms like the name of a business, our policy balances the interest of both users and advertisers. Like other platforms, we allow competitors to bid on trademark terms because it offers users more choice when they are searching. However, if a trademark owner files a complaint, we will block competitors from using their business name in the actual ad text. So what they're saying is that they'll still allow Edible Arrangements, the keyword, which users are searching, to be bought by its competitors, but they won't be able to use the name in the actual text of the ad. So this is criminal.
This is something I'm familiar with because when I was doing websites and SEO, people frequently would want to pay to get in on search results for their competitors' business names. And so I saw this all the time. I'm actually surprised that they're able to do it.
It's mind-blowing. Like, what good is a trademark if someone could just take it and steal it and use it against other people? Like, if I had a service, I would get sued. I would lose immediately. So this is criminal. But hey, what else should we expect given all the totalitarian of the stuff that they've done previously? September 23rd, let's bring it back to you guys. There was a mysterious glitch that only affected conservative sites. This was sent to me by True Reporting. What he discovered was that his subscriber count was set to 0.
Yep.
And what he did is that he went through and found out that the three channels that he tested, Just Informed Talk, True Reporting, and SGT Report, were showing 0 subscribers, but the left-wing sites were not.
Yep.
After complaining about it, it magically reversed itself after a few hours.
Yep. So, happened to me too. Yep.
Happened to you too. Wow. I found out on the 24th that Google was a drug company because of its purchase of a major cancer drug company.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What exactly did they purchase?
What exactly did they purchase? Let me find. I'm just going to open this up right now.
While you're looking for that, I'm just going to say thank you again to Yeshua's Chosen. He says, I need to repeat this because it's a word from God. Don't be discouraged by what you see. Look by faith. Trump is appointed. You will see the fruition of your labors. I mean, I tend to agree with that, and I always try to give that message here on my channel as well, but sometimes as a human who is under the weight of all of this on a daily basis, it's easy for me to get discouraged too. But thank you for reminding me of that. I appreciate that. And then B Dank says, "What's up, RP78? Checking in from Palm Springs, California." B Dank, thank you. I'm glad you're here. Thank you, everyone, for the super chats.
Mm-hmm.
And
so that the name of the company is Coleco.
Coleco. And what is it that they produce?
I believe it's cancer drugs and other health products.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant like they purchased like one drug, like the patent, or so it's a company it's a pharmaceutical company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, and this is really dangerous because they've been suppressing nutraceuticals, CBD oils, and now it's getting into an antitrust issue because, is Google, suppressing these things in order to boost up its own drugs and try to redirect people towards Western medicine rather than natural medicine that's been in existence for thousands of years.
Sure seems like it.
Also, Tech Lead had a video, Tech Lead HD. He's a very
the former tech lead.
Yeah, former tech lead. He's a content creator on YouTube. He's got like 500,000 subscribers. He blew the story that where he exposed the story that the Facebook death was actually a employee suicide cover-up.
Really?
Yeah, and he had some insider info on that, in which the person that died, threw themselves off a building, had wanted to transfer. I guess he had gotten a needs improvement as a score. He wasn't doing very good with there's some personality conflicts on his team, and he decided that he wanted to switch teams. His manager went ahead and okayed it. HR okayed it. And then right before he was about to switch, his manager said, "Why don't you stay? I'll give you a good review." And so he stayed. And then a month later, the guy gave him another needs improvement, which put him on the path towards being fired.
Wow.
And the problem is that he was an H-1B, which meant that he was going to get deported. And so rather than face the shame of that, he threw himself off the Facebook building at the 4th story. And so this also generated a follow-up video of the number of H-1B visas that exist in these tech companies. And what I found, which was really interesting, was that Facebook diversity, if you look at the ethnicity of the company, the technical break in the technical department, 52.3% of the people are Asian. Now, I noticed that when I was in YouTube, that when I left, the company had turned mostly Asian, and that Chinese nationals were flooding into the country.
Mm-hmm.
And when people want to wonder why that these big tech companies are sacrificing all of our civil rights, what we have to realize is that many of the people that are doing this are not actually U.S. citizens. They're actually foreign nationals on an H-1B, and they know that if they don't follow the orders that they're given, they can be fired and then deported out of the country. So it's a really bad situation.
That's a lot of pressure to be under.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they were promised that they were going to be given a good review, and then they are screwed. So okay, so based upon this review, this employee was going to be deported. That was it.
That was going to be the likely outcome.
That's so sad. So sad.
Keep himself off. So that's what I got for an update on what's happening on the Google front that I can talk about.
Okay.
I wanted to introduce a very special person. That he was a Secret Service agent. He was a border control agent. And we had a conversation for about 4 hours talking about UFOs. So I wanted to welcome John Carman. John
John
Carman to the show.
Carman.
God, was it 4 hours?
Yeah, it was 4 hours.
See, there's a time displacement there. I didn't miss but two, so something must have happened, right? Wow. Oh, by the way, you mentioned the HB1 or H1B. I am cross-trained over 40 different agencies, and I had to enforce all of their rules, regulations when I was U.S. Customs. And a lot of these H1B visas, they will pay a special bond. And I had to investigate a young man from Switzerland or Norway or one of the other countries over there. And he was a computer tech. This might enter into your guys' expertise years ago. So we're talking maybe 10 years ago or so. And you can't violate the law. You got all these restrictions and so on and so forth, which are normal. But these guys put up like over $100,000 up to $1 million bonds. And if something happens, they revoke it. They get kicked out. I'm not sure what happens to the bond. Maybe they have another way of fudging on that, the government, that is. But people don't realize there's a lot of other stuff behind those things, and they may pull these people in and use them. And then once they use them up and get what they want out of them, they look for an excuse. So it kind of ties in with Zak's story there, very, very interestingly.
Mm-hmm.
So, John,
who did you Secret Service protect for?
I came on just after Nixon left. Nixon left around August 9th or something like that. I came in on several weeks later, September 3rd, 74. So it was President Ford, the first family, Betty, Susan, Jack, Steve, etc. Kissinger and everybody else that was at the White House and so on and so forth. And then after that, it was Jimmy Carter, Rosalind Carter, and their family. Any heads of state, Dick Cheney, Zbigniew Brzezinski. How about when the peace talks with Anwar Sadat, Menachem Begin, and Jimmy Carter? That was me, all by myself at a part of the White House, which would be near the state dining room, which is away from the West Wing and the Oval Office, where Nixon learned, everything seems to be getting recorded over there. And the news media people, which I don't approve of, the White House press corps is very close near the cabinet room, but they have to go through Secret Service to get invited and go bypass certain areas. But there's a lot of stuff going on there that doesn't sound right. But I bodyguarded a lot of interesting people there. Even before I was transferred to the White House, I was working Foreign Missions Division, which was the embassies. And I was looking for people like Carlos the Jackal, Ilyich Ramirez Sanchez, the terrorist, and all the other ones, Black September, Red Army, and so on and so forth, because they were doing a lot of bombs back then. And that was only 2 years after Munich, 72, if your history's going back in that direction. Excuse me. So, I had an occasion, I was going to bring this up. I had an occasion to interview a young man in front of the White House in 1976. And it's like 2 a.m, and I was on the outside patrol, so I wasn't assigned inside yet. So I made contact with this young man. He's about 19, 20 years old. I was 21, 22 myself, 6'3", 200 pounds, martial arts background, speak several languages, the whole 007 profile thing. Military family, transferred every 3 years. So I engaged him in conversation. So what are you doing out so late? So I want to speak to the president. Yeah, everybody wants to do that. What do you want to talk to him about? So I engaged him in the conversation, and he said he had microwaves in his head. And I thought that's unusual. And then he's talking about sexually related terms. And then he mentioned Jodie Foster. And I said, this guy must have seen that movie by Scorsese, the Taxi Driver movie with Robert De Niro and Jodie Foster. So I got in touch with the duty agent, and he came down and told him about the stuff. And as soon as I said Jodie Foster, his eyes lit up like, I got to talk to this guy. Like that was an interest of some sort. He's just probably being a typical male agent type thing. And I just told him basically, just make sure you get him to St. Elizabeth's, the mental hospital, and spell my name right. And that was it. I went about my patrol. Because we are trained in many different things that people have no idea. Psychologically evaluating people because we have to. And there's all kinds of stuff going on outside the White House and around that area. So I left in 77, because I didn't see things happening the way they should have been going on. They should have had a lot of improvements, which they've gotten now. But when I was working with San Diego PD in '81, that's when Reagan was shot at. So when they posted all this stuff all over the internet, they all over the TV screen when I had a TV, then I looked at the guy and I go, oh my God, that's the same guy I interviewed. That was John W. Hinckley that I interviewed 5 years later.
Wow.
And that's pretty incredible.
And that's something, yeah, it is. And I don't tell many people this, but I thought as a highlight, I would get that out of the way because most of my disclosures are U.S. Customs, national security, border protection, and human trafficking and all kinds of corruption and stuff. But this is real key and critical, but they don't want Secret Service guys to be talking about little foul lips like that. And what's interesting, if you know your history, I do this like a test question. Okay, Reagan got shot, but he wasn't shot with a bullet. And if you pull up a guy named John Judge on YouTube, who's since passed away, he will talk about other things in that area where they had a sound bites that show that Hinckley allegedly shot off all 6 rounds and already hit Tom Brady, Delahunty, the DC cop, Timothy McCarthy, the agent. They turned around and went like that. He didn't have his vest on. Stupid. Made a mistake. He's lucky he was alive. And then eventually Reagan got hit when he was putting up his arm, his left arm, but I'm doing this for the TV thing. And he got hit in between, but it was not a bullet. It was a flechette disc. And if you go back far enough to the Church hearings, CIA assassination, Senate House Committee on Assassination, they discussed exactly those type of weapons where they used high-powered air pistols, air rifles. They shoot a special disc. It's like a serrated edge. I'll pull up a dime. There's a dime. Something like that. But serrated edges, and it could have ricin on it. It could have polonium or something, 235, 238 or whatever.
Why a disc?
Because it's faster, it's quiet.
Damage.
And it's the single lone male assassin theory that they keep pumping into Americans since 1963. Even if you want to go further back, oh my God, even since Abraham Lincoln or other assassins, they always try to give you the idea, oh, it's a lone male gunman. Lee Harvey Oswald never even fired a shot. James Earl Ray never fired a shot. Sirhan, he wasn't involved. It was somebody else in the rafters that actually shot Bobby Kennedy. It just goes from there. And lies. Sorry, I heard feedback. Is that me? Oh, okay.
Hold on just a
NSA,
second. Go ahead and keep talking, though.
NSA, Langley, Fort Meade. So once you figure out what's going on, but what's interesting is they did an X-ray like they're supposed to, and they said, no, we still have something in the president's chest. We have to go back in. They couldn't pull out a bullet. Nobody wants to confirm that it was not a bullet. It was a disc. I tried to get in touch with these guys. Brady's were all dead. I don't know about Delahunty. McCarthy didn't answer his mail or emails, and he's retired and off in Illinois at some county as a sheriff somewhere. He's probably double retired by now. But they're all keeping it secret. And I'm thinking, well, if they're keeping it that secret, who was the vice president that would have benefited if the president was incapacitated if it was Reagan? Anybody?
Well, George W. Bush.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wasn't Hinckley friends with George W. Bush?
There's a connection, yes. So why would John Hinckley get all the way up to Connecticut Avenue? And I did foot patrols in D.C., literally, and I know the embassy rows and all that. There, across the street are embassies. So if he got all the way up to the Hilton and was positioned right outside the area where the cars were positioned to pick up the president, and there was a bunch of news media there, which would be a kind of a dead giveaway. Like, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're the media. We're waiting for the president or something. Unless he had a copy of the Daily Brief showing where the president was going to be that day, then it's unusual that he was positioned there. He had a gun in his possession. He shut off stuff. And yet Reagan was hit with something else. And there was like, 25, 30 people there, and the DC cops were turning around to look at the president. That's not Secret Service training. Those guys were not Secret Service officers. So that's their foul up. They should have been turning around facing the crowd to make sure that somebody didn't pull out a weapon or something, which would have given them a chance to block it or grab it.
Well, I would have to think that Hinckley wasn't the one who had, he was just there just as a patsy, like Sirhan or,
Yes.
Anybody else that's come before him. So, whoever shot off this flechette disc must have been in, a key area, or perhaps it could have been one of the agents themselves there in the crowd.
No agents. I've heard that theory when Bill Cooper. Remember Bill Cooper, Behold the Pale Horse?
Oh, yes.
I had a hard time just getting a copy of his book, and I finally got it, and I went through it and dissected it, and he tried to intimate that maybe one of the agents in Kennedy's car reached all the way around. You try it. Sit where you're sitting and reach all the way around 180 degrees with a gun in your hand while there's another agent to the right of you, Connolly and Mrs. Connolly behind you, and Jacqueline Kennedy, and then all the other agents behind in another car. No, it's not happening.
I actually wasn't. I know about that. I wasn't saying a Secret Service agent. I mean like a clown agent, somebody else working for the agency, like in the crowd, is perhaps the one who would have actually pulled the trigger on whatever it was.
You're talking CIA.
Yes.
A lot of people get us mixed up, and I have to say that and differentiate.
No problem.
They've made special weapons out of cameras that look like a camera, and it's got a gun grip on it. And they could have just sat there and acted poop, and you wouldn't have even seen it or heard it. And they could just act like they're still filming, and nothing would go on. You couldn't see a guy holding the camera up and then squeeze one off. And there's no puff of air. There's nothing. If you ever had a BB gun when you were younger, or a pump BB gun or a pellet gun, stuff like that, and then just turn around and run away, then that would be an indicator. But by that time, one of the other agents whipped out the Uzi out of the briefcase, and everybody else has got their gun out, which is routine. They should have had it out. Even McCarthy should have reached and had his gun when he heard pops going off, instead of turning around and going like that. But that's just a critique for other issues.
Well, I wanted to ask a couple of questions here. You had said before that you were a whistleblower. I wanted to see what it was specifically that you blew the whistle on. And I wanted to know, what are some other crazy things that you saw? Zach mentioned UFOs. And if you have firsthand knowledge from working in the government in regards to UFOs, I think that's something definitely I would be interested in hearing about.
Well, we can get into that. That ties in with my other background that I don't talk about. But I'm a U.S. Customs whistleblower, but it sort of turned into a Secret Service whistleblower when I just told you guys just now over the air a protected disclosure. See, a lot of people don't know the laws, and this stuff about the CIA guy that was supposedly a whistleblower, he didn't really hear the information firsthand, so he's not really a whistleblower. It's hearsay information, and then they're using that as a guise to claim something because the Democrats are so desperate to attack the president. So that's all BS. I'm a real whistleblower. I know the laws, the Whistleblower Protection Act, the No Fear Act. They're useless. They don't enforce the laws. I was protected, or still am supposedly, even when Bill Clinton in '95 enhanced 18 U.S.C. 111, which is under federal law. A federal agent is protected just for reporting criminal activity and doing his job, which is what I'm doing. I also had another law, 18 U.S.C. 115, subparent A, subparent 2. That's the one that Clinton enhanced to give extra protection so nobody can make threats against you or your family. And if you're reporting stuff, it's because you took an oath. And I took an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that means if I see a violation of law, I'm supposed to report it. Internal Affairs didn't work. Office of the Inspector General through Treasury didn't work. I went higher up. Then I went to Department of Justice, the Attorney General, the FBI, higher and higher and higher, even to the Oval Office during Clinton, 95 or so. And then once you've gone through all those people and the Congress and the Senate, which I did, I went through Dianne Feinstein and somebody named Maxine Waters.
We're familiar.
right? Because I was working with Mike Rupert and Gary Webb, who were also exposing CIA connections. And I could confirm right over the airwaves tonight that I did see CIA personnel at the border on the U.S. side because they came into my area and I was the senior inspector of that area where the secondary inspection area is, where we inspect cars and arrest people and do all kinds of interesting things. And I challenged them. And since I also worked at the White House, I know what a CIA document and a credential looks like. And these guys are wearing suits. So when I carded them, I said, well, yeah, what are you guys doing here? I'm just opening the conversation up so they can respond. And I've got such a background in behavioral analysis and stuff. I mean, I didn't process 3 million plus people and not learn something. I want to catch them lying. If they're lying, I would have detained them, and I had to contact the port director so they could be aware of it, because these guys are snooping around. They're on the wrong side of the border. They're supposed to be on the other side, snooping around, you know. So we're all playing spy versus spy, you know. It's all back and forth. But anyway, I digress sometimes. I get sidetracked.
No problem.
Where was I? Zach?
Yeah.
Either one. RP, Zach.
So did you hear, like, how did you first, like, come into contact or see it, or what's your first story about, you know, seeing
Well,
you?
my first stuff was when I seized a large amount of heroin in the U.S. Customs Service when I was assigned to Calexico. After I was up in San Francisco, I was working at the U.S. Mint, protecting all that gold, which is no longer there. They moved it. And I continually would see problems in the agencies I was at. And you have to remember that I was a professional. I was trained to do law enforcement. I have law degrees and stuff. And I just fit right in perfectly. But I started to find out there were issues internally as I went along. So when I seized a bunch of heroin, it was like over 11 ounces of brown tar heroin at Calexico, which is right across the street from Mexicali, which is the capital of Baja, Mexico. The Hispanic supervisor gave the heroin back to the Mexican narcs, which is against the law. He's not supposed to do that because I already arrested somebody and we're supposed to keep that person detained. They go to court. We hold on to the evidence. The guy gets convicted. He gets sentenced. We destroy the heroin after that, and then it goes from there. You don't give it back to the Mexicans so that they can reintroduce it back into a system and get it resmuggled back in for $250,000 to $500,000 or more in dollars. That's a lot of money. That means if you don't get arrested, they kill you, type of thing. So I interfered with the cartels, but some of the U.S. Customs inspectors or the officials are Hispanic. And those guys are connected to the cartels from Mexico, the Arellano Felix cartels, stuff like that.
Do you think they were placed there so that they could assist with the cartels? Like, did they, like, what was that movie that Martin Scorsese did? Where it was I can't remember, The Departed. The Departed. They raised.
That's a good movie. Good. It's a good referral. I put myself in connection with DiCaprio's position in a way. And there were so many things. You had to cut it and separate it. And people don't get that stuff. But I could say for a fact that I believe that certain Hispanic supervisors are placed at the southwest border and they do fit in. And if they speak Spanish and they come from that culture, we've even got people who are naturalized U.S. citizens. They're not white males like me. You don't see any black males over in Calexico. And I was a separate category because I spoke Spanish and other languages. But word got around, I'm ex-Secret Service. So that kind of gave me a different kind of a buffer. You know what I mean? It was kind of like they kind of backed off like, oh, shoot, he's from the White House or something. So maybe that gave me an extra protection. Maybe. I don't know. But when I got home, I had death threats like, you're going to die like the rest, you blank, blank, blank. Kept copies of it, gave it to Internal Affairs, got transferred back to San Diego. But it continued on. And when I wore a pager, I got death threats on a pager that punched 187 on it, which is homicide. And by that time, I had a young baby, and I was trying to protect the family. But I would get 3 seizures in one 8-hour shift. What are these other guys doing? Well, some of them are bought off and they're passing loads of people or drugs while I'm busting my behind
Right.
trying to get other stuff. And I'm getting fugitives from day one, firearms, narcotics, you name it. You can't name something I haven't gotten, I don't think. I mean, marijuana, cocaine, methamphetamine, LSD, ketamine, all the pills, drugs, and things like that, short of ephedrine and the precursor chemicals from China and Denmark and a couple other places, to fentanyl, which is a new drug, China white, which is very expensive. That's a hard to find one, and propofol, which is that. But fentanyl is very dangerous, and propofol is the latest stuff that they're smuggling in. But
Right.
Body carries, cars, airplanes, boats, U.S. military ships. I've had captains that were sweating just looking at me because they were scared about something. I've had military flights that would show up or not show up at military bases in San Diego, and that's a violation. And when I called the office, customs office, they'd say, "Oh, just report back to work." No, we're going to contact the captain of the base. We're going to contact the admiral and find out what the hell is going on. They've got a plane missing. There are people connected to that plane or jet. That means something's going on. Reference Colonel Stabo from El Toro Marine Base years ago, who was assassinated at the base because he was getting ready to go public. And I helped investigate the aftermath of that investigation with his brother. Sonny Bono, remember Sonny Bono, Sonny and Cher?
Yeah, died on the slopes.
Well, he was murdered. I sent a
Really?
VHS tape. I sent a VHS tape to him 3 months before his death in 1998. And I had already been public for 3 years prior to that. So I was doing interviews with George Putnam up in LA, 60 Minutes with Mike Wallace, over 3.5 hours, and so on and so forth. And I sent him a copy of a lecture I did for 2 hours disclosing information like what we're kind of talking about. And if you look at the details, he's an experienced skier. And if he had had a problem, he would have just laid down and knew how to use his feet and legs to cause resistance against the snow, even if it was an ice patch. He could still do it. He showed wounds all over his body.
Really?
Like yeah.
Wow.
I heard that he had like lodged his head in between two trees or something like that. And he died when I was a kid. I remember thinking at the time how strange it was because I was aware that he was an avid skier. Real quick before we continue, I need to give a couple of quick thank yous. Ben Schwagel says, Red Pill 78, can you mention serpent seed to them? They should look into it, and so should you. Talk to Erin Moffat about it. She knows. I don't know what serpent seed is, but guys, if you know what that is, then maybe we can talk about it. Western Sunrise says, after this Ukraine situation, it's nice to hear from actual whistleblowers, and I would have to give a big thumbs up to that. Stealth Bomber says, question, vapes have existed for years now. Why is this happening now? Why has this blown up in the mainstream media? Who benefits from the ban? The tobacco companies. And I have to say the federal government is going to benefit from all of the increased tax revenue from all of these people buying cigarettes now instead of vapes. SM says, God bless Zach, Red Pill, and John. 3 times 40 equals 120. Thank you for that super chat. God bless. Never go changing. Research War Castle's documentary, please. That's right, War Castles. That's great. We had Robert Horton on here last week. He's going to be coming back. Kinahization says, thanks, guys, from Kinna. Thank you very much for that. And Best Nani Ever says, thanks, guys. I never get to catch a live show. Well, I'm glad that you were able to catch this one. So basically, John, you were out there destroying rat lines, destroying people's, dirty income that they were bringing in. And I would imagine that the government, people in the government, you mentioned the clowns in America, I'm sure that they had something to do with it. And we got a lot of people asking about UFOs, so I want to wrap up the whistleblower topic, I guess, and get to UFOs.
Okay.
But
well, let me kind of round off the thing about the thing about human trafficking. I found a document at the customs office in San Diego, which is what I'm supposed to do. And if you put me somewhere, you can bet that I'm going to find something or clean it out or discover whatever. And I did. There was a document that was by John Heinrich up in district director up in Long Beach, which was an overflight list for Mexican registered aircraft to fly into the United States over San Diego district up into the LA district, which is a violation because that only comes from the President of the United States or through the Secretary of Treasury, something like that. That's 167 people with names and date of births who I had run through the immigration database to double check, because I had a friend who was with immigration, to double check, make sure. And then not one of them had an entry document. That means that if they came across the border, they could be arrested. And the guy, you're going to like this. I was doing an interview with a guy named Chris Gerner, who has since passed away a couple of years ago. We're doing an interview, just like we're talking about it now. And he says, John, we got to go off the air. And I said, yeah, what's up? Do you know this guy Heinrich? I said, no, he's just some district director. I don't know him. We're talking about the overflight list. He says, well, it's his future brother-in-law. He's getting ready to marry his sister, Christine Gerner, Gerner. And I said, really? So he said some other information, and then he disclosed, oh my God, she just deposited $250,000 to a special bank account that they have, and it came from him. He's not going to get $250,000 for his job.
No.
Now, I know about other agencies. They've got slush funds. They got drug money for DEA up in the millions, and then after it's 10 million, they have to go to DC to get approval. But once I started talking about that, when we went back on the air and fully disclosing this information, I got threats. He got threats immediately from the brother-in-law, John Heinrich, to take off all of my recorded interviews and not to do any more interviews. Otherwise, he was going to remove him from his house where he was at because of his father just passed away thing. So he moved. He went to another state after that. So it continues on. It just continues. I found, I kept documents, which is about 2.5, 3 inches thick for 15 years at U.S. Customs, turned it into the Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the FBI. They kept copies. They numbered them. I got it back. I've got other copies. The Attorney General under Janet Reno says, well, unless you're getting shot at with bullets, there's nothing we could do.
Not going to offer you protection. So is this why Sonny was killed? So you gave Sonny hardcore evidence and information.
Yes.
Somebody mentioned that he was in Congress. Is that right? I wasn't following politics too heavily at that time.
Yeah, his office was up in Palm Springs.
Okay.
Now, Palm Springs is very interesting because that is where also a former President Gerald Ford retired years ago. And I won't disclose other people and information, but he was up there. I mean, Cher is out of Imperial Valley, where I used to work at Calexico. So it's kind of an interesting connection there. And I've reached out to her, but I'm not getting contacts back. So I'm thinking I'm being blocked, and that's what I'm suffering, which is why I need you guys to help me out on those kind of issues and stuff. But yeah, it just keeps going on and on. I don't get a retirement. They blocked me off Social Security after 20 years. I'm supposed to get 80 quarters. They're saying I only have 15. You know, I need an attorney for that stuff or not. And they're just continually screwing with me, but I can't get the word through the president. But I use the email system through the White House.
Yeah.
I've sent hard mail. I've sent a DVD, the same thing I sent to Sonny Bono, and still nothing. And I think the people that are around him are compartmentalizing, and they're spies. They're embedded by the Dems, you know, the Democrats like James Comey and people like that. And that's how they do that. So it goes on for years. But yeah, you want to get into the little green aliens?
Let's talk about UFOs. So how...
And interdimensional too. Let's clear that up.
I would definitely have to say, yeah, there's a lot of different pieces to this. It's not just, interdimensional. There has to be things that we don't see. One thing on that tip that I would like to bring up, there is he's an astronomer, I believe. His last name is Santilli. He's from Italy, and I believe that he works for the Vatican. He invented a new type of telescope that uses a different type of lens, and it allows for you to see, I guess, dark matter or some stuff. I'm not real clear on it, but when using this telescope, they have identified some type of creatures that we can't see with our naked eye through the visible light spectrum, that they've been caught like floating. They're like some type of like being. I don't know what it is, but it just goes to show that there's things out there that we can't see, that we are unable to just witness on a regular basis.
Well, that's true. And I've studied this stuff since I was a kid because I had an interest in it. I think there was a UFO magazine back in the 60s, and then on occasion I would look at it. And then when I wasn't doing other stuff for sports, and I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, I didn't screw around and go out and do bad things and stuff. But there you go, obey. Yeah, the movie, them,
the great
them.
documentary, They Live.
Yeah, I've come here to chew bubblegum and kick butt, right?
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
That's a cool line.
Mm-hmm.
But you just touched on stuff that, see, I research everything. And I was doing radio shows with Art Bell, and I called up Philip J. Corso in 95 because I was in injury leave with U.S. Customs. I was sucking up too many car exhaust fumes at the border. Talk about inhalation issues, injuries.
Imagine.
Yeah, I had some CO in my system that wasn't supposed to be there. But yeah, there's a light spectrum. When you go outside and it's light out, you're not just getting a certain amount of light, which is about, an inch, all the way from left to right, the certain spectrum. There's a whole full spectrum. So when you take pictures, which is why aliens don't like us to take pictures of them, like the Lacerda interview on YouTube, which I refer to sometimes because
I've never seen it.
That's
no.
It's a 2-hour interview. It ties in with Thomas Edwin Costello at Dulce, New Mexico. It ties in with stuff like Phil Snyder.
Phil Snyder and Dulce, I'm familiar with that, yeah.
And both of those guys were killed in 1996, and President Clinton was president back then. Just a little piece of information.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take the wide spectrum of light, it almost reminds me of an Outer Limits movie from the 60s where the guy made some special lenses. And I wear glasses, but you can put a special UV protector in the glass. And you can also put lead in certain glass so that you can look at radioactive materials through a special facility. So that means that if they put a special refraction and the molecules are different, then they can open it up to see other things that are interdimensional that fly right next to aircraft in the commercial lane aircraft traffic that's only 3,000 to 4,000 feet up to 10,000 feet. And by the time they see it and they're out in the open, it's because they've already uncloaked their device so that you can see them. But they're only doing it for a reason, and they can blip in and out, just like the ones I've seen that were photographed hovering over the Temple Mount in Israel, and they zip off so fast. That's a natural type of a deal. It's not faked. So if they can do that, you can imagine. Now, I've had a paranormal experience, and I still don't know which it was. I mean, I've had 3 of them. One was a cloud that appeared on the ceiling of my apartment here, where I'm at, and I live next to a church, and I'm surrounded by all kinds of religious stuff. But I came back from the Contact in the Desert, if you're familiar with that. Dr. Stephen Greer, who I've talked to for several hours, personally, face-to-face, when he came to San Diego. Clyde Lewis was a contact friend of mine, which is why I was asked to go up there. And I met all kinds of interesting people up there. If you're familiar with Contact in the Desert,
I've heard of it,
Joshua
yes.
Tree.
Yep.
So I came back after about 6 hours, and within several days, I had an incident where I had some bananas hanging on a hanger. You know those hangers that look like a 7? And it's just a stand. And
Okay.
you have to spread the bananas open to hang them on there.
Sure.
So it's always between 3 and 3:30 in the morning. Now, I've researched this too. There were some paranormal rangers that are Navajo Indians over in New Mexico, Arizona. And they said that there's an electromagnetic field of the earth is weakest between 3 and 3:30 for some reason.
Okay.
I thought, okay, that's the opening. Stargates, time portals, whatever. It also gives them a way to step in. So anyway, at 3 in the morning, I hear a thump. I grab my little flashlight, which I was kind of using because I finally found my LED light. And I go walking around into the spare room. I go into the bathroom, nothing. Come back, sit down on the sofa. And I think, John, you didn't go check the kitchen. So I go into the kitchen, and immediately on the middle of the floor, not next to the kitchen where the sink and the bananas were the bananas in the center of the floor.
Not
Now,
on the stand.
Right. The stand was still on the counter.
Very
That
interesting.
should be ooh right
Sure.
there. Everybody should be going ooh. Yeah, exactly. So I go, okay, I'm mentally saying, like a prayer or a method type of a communication. Okay, you got my attention. I'm picking the bananas up. You're welcome to the bananas. If you want them, I'll share them. I'll give them all to you if you want them. So I take them, I put them back on the stand. I had to spread them open, put them on there. And I buy mine green. These were just changing. So I go back, sit down, wait. Okay, is it going to happen again? I'm going to wait. I start dozing off and thump. I hear a second thump. This time I took the flashlight, go right straight into the kitchen this time. There was a corner banana off the left corner of the stalk ripped off, and one single banana was placed in the exact same spot in the center of the kitchen.
Oh,
again.
Wow.
Guess where the rest of the bananas were?
Were they still on the hook?
Yeah, they were not on the ceiling. Okay, so they were still on the hook. So I go, okay, that got my attention. I took the single banana, said the same thing. This time I placed it next to the other ones on the sink, on the counter, and offered it mentally to whoever wanted them. After that, it was like, I dozed off. It was after 3:30, and I went back to sleep. Nothing happened since then. But it was right after that meeting up in Contact in the Desert. You could say what you want. I've had contacts with people. I had a beautiful, tall blonde come up to me just to give me a hug, and that was nice. I said, gee, that was good. Stick around. I mean, I could use more endorphins, And some of a lot of interesting people were wearing these little amulets that I got a hold of, which is supposed to block the RFIDs. It's made of volcanic material.
Okay.
It's a quantum disc. That's what it is. And I tried that, and I said, it seems to block off some stuff. It seems to help things a little bit. But anyway, that was probably the most significant. And I'm 66, and I used to run around cemeteries and sports, and just run around like normal kids would between 5, 6, 7, and 8 when I'm not doing other stuff, But when you talk about UFOs, I'm thinking about Jimmy Carter. Remember, he promised as a campaign promise to release Operation Blue Book.
I did know that, right? I know that Bill Clinton also had some stuff to say about that. Some people in his orbit were some pretty evil people. I don't want to say the name on here, but the initials are JP, also associated with HRC and then and Barry Obama. But yeah, so did Carter ever release anything officially about that?
No, that's the whole point. That's my point in bringing it up.
Yep.
He would be one of the first, or probably one of the only presidents I'm aware of that actually filled out a UFO document that said he actually spotted something.
Yes.
Now, I've seen, and again, I came from a military background. I should insert this in now before I forget. We traveled every 3 years. That means I dropped what I was doing in the middle of school, traveled to another military base. San Diego, Texas, San Diego, Texas, Japan, at a top secret military base that Lee Harvey Oswald was stationed at, where U-2 flights kind of took off from, Gary Powers' fame or whatever, and other areas up in that area during the Vietnam era, 67 to 1970. Then I went to a place called Naval Weapons Center, China Lake, which is right next to Ridgecrest in the desert.
Yes, China Lake, they just had some stuff happening there.
Yeah, I did a interview about the bees that were dying up there, and then they claimed later that it was, they were claiming it was on Ridgecrest. I said, no, that's a lie. The news media is reporting that this stuff is actively happening on Ridgecrest property when it's on Naval Weapons Center, 1 million square miles, the largest military base in the United States, where we develop and do all kinds of weapons, including electromagnetics. And I've seen pictures of UFOs, and I tried to get in touch with the guy that had the photographs, which I posted on my Facebook, and they suddenly started to get disappeared or removed, and the guy never contacted me. So I think I was being blocked. But they said later that they had $5.2 billion worth of damage on that base. I said, wait a minute. They claimed they had 5,000 employees. Where were they? If you watch the old movie Time Tunnel, these guys go underground and that's it. You don't see anybody. Well, these guys have an underground base up there apparently, and I was on top of the base. I actually worked undercover at that base, and they had all kinds of narcotics violations and stuff going on. but you don't see 2,000 people or more. You know what I mean? Spread out. You'd be lucky to see a couple of thousand, but not 5,000. Where were they hiding all these people?
Well,
So
if they have an underground portion of the base, that must have been where they were working.
that's what I'm saying. It's
Yep.
almost like Dulce, New Mexico, where they have several layers or levels where they're allegedly keeping the reptilians at the bottom and doing hybridization type experimentation and all that stuff. But Carter was blocked by other people from releasing the information, and they blocked the operational book. They changed the name. He tried to get assistance from George Herbert Walker, which was a bad idea. So Carter was an honest president. He still is, but he was manipulated by the people around him. That's what I see going on. So anytime you see a president that says, oh, I'm going to release information about the UFOs and I'm going to confirm that aliens exist, he doesn't know what he's talking about, because as soon as he gets into office, he gets briefed by the Magic 12 guys. And I had top secret clearance, serious top secret clearance. President has top secret, but then it goes above his level.
Right.
25 positions, maybe, something like that.
Now, John, I just have a couple more thank yous I have to give. Bedridden Bear says those are demons. A lot of people in the audience they think that aliens are demons. And then Ben Schwagel says serpent seed is where where Satan is forced relations with Eve, conceiving Cain. Then Eve slept with Adam, conceiving Abel. Cain's lineage is still here. They hate us and want to destroy us all. I don't know. I've never heard that before. And haven't heard that. And then SM says, VIP, watch Sarah Westall YouTube, Clown Disclosure of Human Consciousness, Parts 1 and 2. Wow, we'll check that out. So when you were working in the Carter administration, did you ever talk to Jimmy Carter about what his experience was or any of that stuff? I would imagine if you'd been following that stuff as a kid, that'd be the first thing I'd want to say to the president.
Well, yeah, but it's very difficult. And I wanted to interject what this other person just messaged you.
Yeah.
I'm still separating the fact that there's over 57 varieties of species of aliens. We have people from Venus. I got that from a retired United States Air Force general's wife from years ago. Valiant Thor, if you know your UFOlogy.
I have heard of Valiant Thor, but I can't find anything to back it up. I've seen what are supposed to be pictures of Valiant Thor, but I mean, the only stuff I can find about it is, it's just kind of seems like secondhand information.
It's the same thing I'm running into. You got one guy with dark hair, you got a female, 2 or 3 other people, and then another one that looks like that actor, Shaw, or whatever his name was, blonde hair or something. And I've got contacts with many other sources, but what I'm trying to do is try to put this in some sort of an order.
Sure.
Is that Valiant Thor supposedly came in 1951 to Washington, D.C. and landed near the Pentagon. The story is they kept him there for up to 3 years, let him stay in one of the suites at the Pentagon, if you want to call it that. Did you ever see the original Day the Earth Stood Still?
Yes, I have seen that. Yeah, I watched it when I was a kid.
Okay, that's critical. 1951 was the year they came out with all these cool science fiction movies, the UFOs, and movies like that. Valiant Thor was taken specifically to the White House to see President Eisenhower. Do you remember who the vice president was when Eisenhower was president in 1951?
No, I wasn't born yet, but
Zach, how about you, Zach?
My earbuds are out, so my thing's all messed up. No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Who was Eisenhower's vice president? That's the question. Anybody in the audience?
Sir, hey, I want a free T-shirt. Damn it! That's that'd be cool.
Subscribe and listen for your chance to win next month. It's almost October.
There
We're going to
you
do
go.
another giveaway in October, guys.
Say again?
I said it's almost October. We're going to do another giveaway in October.
Hey, is it Nixon? My buddy here is saying it's Nixon.
Oh, that was good. And he didn't Google it, did he? I mean, that was pretty quick.
Yep, other people in the audience. Nixon.
Yeah,
Nixon.
it was Nixon. And I want you to focus in on that for a second, because the vice president of the president is the conduit to all the intelligence agencies. And if there's something going on about a UFO or a spotting or some sort of identification or an activity where they're shutting down NORAD bases and ICBMs, and I'm saying that for a reason because it has been done, then the vice president gets it and he takes it himself over to the president unless something else is going on that's so hot that they have to get it through military communications. And I've been at the Oval Office. I mean, I used to check the red phone. You know, I'd pick up the phone just to check it. Hello. No, I'd just pick it up. It activates. And the guy would answer like on the bat phone. Yes, Mr. President. And I would say, Secret Service, just checking the line. Thank you. And then I'd hang up.
Nice.
You know, but that's back in those days. But yeah, back to the 1951. So Valiant Thor presented them with some sort of a booklet, you know, no different than, you know, some sort of a booklet of some sort, which had a plan for free energy, which I keep telling people we have access to since Bob Lazar has been working on stuff at Area 51 for years.
I've met Bob
free
Lazar.
Energy, clean air, clean water, and superfoods, which gets into Zak's area because we talk about all kinds of interesting health stuff and things like that. And we'd all be healthy. But the thing is, Eisenhower came back with, no, we can't, after a year, allegedly after a year. Now, you got to understand, a lot of times they don't tell you the truth on certain information, which I could use another example. But they basically said, well, they turned it down because they didn't figure it would be a good idea because it would interfere with the fossil fuel, the oil companies, the people who have serious money involved, because it would put them out of business. It would change the whole planet. It would just cause things, but they didn't follow it a certain way. And Eisenhower actually met with aliens separately of this guy at either Holloman Air Force Base, reference Art Campbell, who just recently passed away, of UFOcrashbook.com. And he contacted me 4 or 5 years ago to confirm about these Secret Service agents that were on a manifest that took Eisenhower to the meeting. It was either at Edwards in the desert where I've been to near China Lake, or Holloman, or both. And I confirmed the agents' names, and the same 2 agents that were there at the meeting for 6 to 8 hours were also in Dallas in 1963 when Kennedy was shot.
Wait a second.
That's
repeat
kind of
that.
weird.
Are you saying that you saw the actual manifest from when?
Yes.
Okay, when the president went to supposedly meet aliens. Now, in that manifest, does it say Eisenhower met with tall gray aliens or
no?
What does it say?
The manifest is no different than the ones that I've published about Epstein and his pilot. That would include the names of people like Ehud Barak with 2 Secret Service agents.
Oh, like the flight manifest. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you get into stuff like that, they're not going to release that under a FOIA request. They'd probably come out with a couple of guys in suits, and you wouldn't be walking around after that, maybe. Which is something that happened to Phil Snyder, and they took all of his alien artifacts that was found either at Roswell or one of the other locations. But anyway, so you got the meeting, 6 to 8 hours. They actually, this is what bothers me, is that Secret Service is supposed to be with the president, and if they allowed him to go on board of a UFO, they could have just transferred him out, cloned him, replaced his body, closed up the ship, and flown off to another dimension, and those guys would be standing there holding the bag. You know, can you imagine? Or there could have been a time warp or something. They could have split like Admiral Thomas Byrd that went to the North Pole and disappeared, and their time frame was 2 hours off fuel and 2 to 4 hours off on fuel and so forth. And the skirmish that they had at the South Pole, where they've got underground bases, you know, and that's stuff that even Obama, the Kenyan, showed people down there, like Buzz Aldrin, people that were Orthodox Church members, and some other VIPs, so they could see these tall aliens, the Anunnaki.
I remember.
I want to get this out of the way. The thing with the alien, the demons, yeah, they got the short ones. Those could be the demons. But they've got demons, they've got short ones, they've got grays, they've got clones, they've got different various types in between that go up to the Kandahar giants or the tall whites or the other ones that are 15 to 35 foot Anunnaki or the fallen angel stuff. So your guess is as good as mine, but until they start doing other things, a lot of the people that get abducted, and I've done abduction investigations, and I still consult people that need help on that for reverse, analysis on hypnosis, looking for implants. They've got implants that are either crystalline in nature, and some are actual biological. So if you try to recover it, they can dissolve it and it disappears. And if you're familiar with Emery Smith, who has done autopsies,
yes, I've heard the name. Yeah,
over 300,000. I've communicated with him. Art Campbell from the UFOCrashbook.com fame. He's got a book. I had one of his books before he died about a year ago. I just found out, so they were keeping it a secret. He actually recovered what looks like alien body parts, and one of them looks like a heart. If you remind me, I'll send you a graph picture that he made up that looks like a humanoid of some sort with the heart, which looks very similar to ours. But a lot of these beings do not have the same bodily functions. They lost the ability to reproduce, which is why they're doing the hybridization, where they steal ovum and sperm from young humans all the way down. Well, I want to separate them. They're getting developed humans that are 12, 13, 14 years old. The other people that are doing the Satanist stuff, where they're doing sacrificial stuff, they're going all the way down to babies to take the endocrines and the endorphins, which is the adrenochromes, at a heightened state of fear, and then they will harvest the baby, which is a Satanist type procedure, or a religious sect. Which, yeah, you mentioned a couple of people already. You didn't want to say the names, right, JP? Or
yeah, I don't want to say his name.
I'll say it.
No, don't say it. Don't say it.
I've had death threats. What difference does it make,
well,
right? Hey, what difference at this point does it make?
It's not about the death threats. It's about the algorithm on YouTube.
Well, that's right. That's right. But you liked my little quote there. It was kind of funny.
Yes.
But yeah, those people are seriously into stuff that I couldn't believe, because they would just soon remove half of the population or 1/3 of the population. As long as they've got 1/3 left, they don't care if they get rid of 2/3 of the world population in the worst way.
Well, isn't that like part of the cabal's goal in the end? I mean, to reduce world population by 2/3. Georgia Guidestones, I immediately think about.
Right. I've seen those, and I've read that material, and I've been going hard, headstrong since '95 when I was on injury leave, and then eventually I got forced out in '98. So every time I'm on the computer, I'm looking up various things, and I don't just look it up on my own. I get an image, or I get a message, or I get a communication, or something, and I get fixated on a subject, and I can't let go. And I go, wait a minute. It's like I was watching The Alamo with John Wayne, and I go, wait a minute. I saw that years ago. I've seen it a dozen times. Why do I keep watching it? And I said, well, 185 heroes against 5,000 Mexican troops are good odds for heroes, right? So if you're a whistleblower, you can relate to that. You can go, hey, no problem. I'm going to go down fighting. But there's other messages and things that come to you. Like right now, this week, just because we're talking about it, have you seen the movie Prometheus?
Oh yeah, I've seen all the Alien movies. Yeah.
Right, with Noomi Rapace.
Yes.
Okay, she's hot, and I'm watching this go, and I go, wait a minute. They left out all this information. She's 5'4", but she's really attractive. So, but she's very intelligent. She's a great actress. But the point is, Ridley left out so much information. I had to watch a YouTube analyzing the first movie to go to the second follow-up because they didn't put it in there, right?
I've watched a lot of those explaining Prometheus videos myself. Right? I loved Alien, I loved Aliens, but after that it just got really bad. And Prometheus, it seemed like he was trying to do a lot of different things, and I've heard people comment on Prometheus and think that maybe he was trying to, put these ideas out there that there is some type of, basically that God is aliens. I mean, I don't believe that, obviously, but I think that there's probably people out there who do see it along those lines. Maybe people in Hollywood.
Let's break that down, because I can go that way too. and I'm somewhat religious, or at least I'm baptized a Christian, but I studied Eastern religions in college at the same time before I went into total law enforcement majors and full schedules. So I got 2 degrees in less than 3 years. So that's a full load. But when you divide all the stuff from dimensional, interdimensional beings, and you've got different types of aliens that have different types of backgrounds, from reptilian to insectoids to people with fish gills, people under the water. We've got aliens and other species under the water here that they don't want to talk about. Not to mention, if you come across the giant skulls that are 15 to 25 feet tall, like the Kandahar giant.
Oh, that's that Afghanistan. Yeah.
Yeah. Afghanistan. There's a good movie called The Objective. If you want to watch that for some sort of a basic idea that explains why the heck would we be interested in Afghanistan when it's a bunch of rough terrain, it's in the desert, there's nothing there unless there's some sort of raw natural resources like gold or copper or some other mineral, lithium. And the Russians didn't have a good time of it. But even though there's some logistical problems with the movie, which is what I analyze movies on, even if it's about Secret Service, White House Down, or whatever the latest movie was, Angel whatever Down, with Gerard Butler and Morgan Freeman.
Oh, yes.
I disclosed stuff about drones back in 1990, 91. Okay. Now it's a big fad. Everybody's got a drone. They're flying them everywhere, which is good. You can get a lot of information. But if you understood all the other stuff, there's so many different aliens. But the way I did the research and found out was that there's also a group that we can't put our fingers on that has a special protective bubble around them, and you can't enter them. And they can enter you, but you can't enter them. It's a special permanent type of a immortal type of an interdimensional being. That it's a being of light. And I'm going, well, if we get to an alien, and these aliens on Prometheus had the same DNA as we did, then who planted the seed? But I'll throw this one at you. We have whites, we have blacks, we have Asians, we have Native Americans, we got other people on the planet, but there's a special place that are Basque. And Basque have a Rh negative blood. I don't know how many people on the screen tonight have Rh negative blood like I do, and green eyes. Depends on what time of day it is or what shirt I'm wearing. It changes color, but it's very unique. It's less than 1 or 2% of the world population. The Basques do not come from this planet.
Really?
So my mother was Irish something with reddish hair, blue, green. My dad was different. And my aunt used to go back to Ireland. So it's English, Irish, Dutch, German, Irish, something Viking connection.
I've got Iberian blood, and I believe Iberia, that's like the southern tip of Spain, and it's like in the same area as the Basques.
Yeah. So if you look back on your history back in the Bible, and I'm not a Bible thumper, folks. I go on the historical stuff, and then I go outside of it and do other research. I was researching the missing years of Jesus and stuff like that. But if Noah's Ark landed and all the other beings died, allegedly, even on higher than Mount Everest, which is the highest point of the earth, supposedly, unless something else happened or they hid out in a cave somewhere, then everything else died. But the bloodline from Noah's Ark continued on. Then you've got the 12 tribes of Israel and stuff like that. Of course, you've got the break off from Cain and Abel, and from Abraham, it breaks off. But we're still interconnected, supposedly. But the bloodlines don't match up right. If you check, and what's interesting is everybody needs to be aware of this. It's a cool thing this week, like Elizabeth Warren got her ancestry DNA checked through Ancestry.com or some ancestry DNA research group, submitted her DNA or a cheek swab or something. They found out she's 100% European. God, that's a shocker, isn't it? And she was born in Oklahoma, and I was born in Oklahoma, but I was not born out in the open. I was born on a top secret military base. Now, that might freak people out, but that's military. But military is also Native American, which is kind of like, well, yeah, we took their land from them, but it's just a thing. But I could go, I've got more Native American in me because I was born not too far from Jim Thorpe, who was in the same area, or James Garner, who was born in the same area in Norman, Oklahoma, or some other famous people that were in those areas. But so much for Elizabeth Warren and that stuff.
Pocahontas.
Here's the thing: if you get asked by a doctor, this is the latest craze, to do a Cologuard test on your fecal matter because they don't want you to go and do a special exam with a colonoscopy scope.
Sure.
Then you can they can mail it to you. You can do it at home at the convenience of your home. You can leave a sample in a special sealed plastic container with liquid in it, and you can do a special sample in a special vial and seal that up, throw it in the box, put it back in the mail, and ship it off UPS or whatever. And they will go in there and test and say, oh yeah, you're fine. Your colon's fine. You don't have any cancers. And thank you very much. And oh yeah, we did test for your DNA, but they won't tell you anything about that. Now that means they're doing a database to get everybody's DNA any way they can because they're looking for people with certain backgrounds.
I've definitely heard that before. Real quick, I just need to do a couple of quick super chats. White Hat said, Lord have mercy. And Sean Private says, beam me up, Mr. Scotty. And Tanette Booth says, I'm O negative with green eyes.
There you go.
I've heard a lot of interesting things about people with Rh negative blood, but I had never heard that they would.
Well, let me tell you about stem cell research was stopped by President George Bush Jr. in 2000, 2001, somewhere in that time frame.
Right.
I read a story because I have so much information about stuff that I research because I've got a lot of interest. So some guy who was 60-something years old had a heart issue. He went to Brazil. They put a stem cell patch on his heart. Now, I'm not sure what a patch means. Does that mean they actually literally opened him up on a chest, open heart surgery, stapled, glued with super glue, a special patch of stem cell material from a donor or a body or a recently born placenta umbilical cord of some sort or another source? Because there's new research that they can do with an electronic chip right now that will take your own material and help reconstitute itself. But he had it done. They could have just injected it to the heart, and he was healed and was out running a couple of miles a day like he was 30 years old after that. Now, the problem with a reason why Bush may have restricted it is, one, it will change your DNA. It will change the color of your eyes, short of doing something about your fingerprints, but I don't think it went that far. But I know for a fact, if it changes your eye color and your blood type and maybe doing other stuff to your structure as a human being, if you're human, then you're going to have to go out and get a new ID card and get your passport altered again.
Wait a second. You're saying that if stem cell therapy, so stem cells from another individual with different DNA, that will change your DNA, or you can change your eye color? Because the way that I understood it, and I could be wrong, is that the stem cells would they would incite like the growth of like your own cellular material.
Right, that's what you would think. And
Yeah.
I heard other research that said the opposite, but it could be either one or both, because that's what they didn't want to get out. That's what they were trying to prevent. And when they try to hide something like that, then there's some truth to it. Because if they put a certain type of DNA, let's say they're harvesting aborted fetuses and full-term fetuses and so forth, they can take the material and maybe even find a match to your blood type and take that material, inject it, which is what the spirit cooking is getting into, which is kind of a gross way to think about it. But I'm going, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, that's definitely it.
You're contaminating yourself with a blood type or blood from whatever, and you're putting sperm from whatever, whether it's matched up or not, and you're making pacts with the devil, aka Lady Gaga supposedly did something like that. I love her. I love some of her music. In fact, I drove all the way to Contact in the Desert listening to that song Alejandro.
I
So that was a mantra. It was like, okay, 200 miles, Alejandro, monster drinks, right?
Right.
Low carb monster drinks, and windows are rolled down, and I'm in that old '89 BMW hauling behind, But yeah, this is interesting because if they're going to do that, they're not telling you all the other stuff that is so secret that if they could heal us, and I believe that they can, and they've got Area 51 technology, there are people dying of cancer. And I just heard of somebody's son who's a Buddhist priest, and his son got cancer. And I'm thinking, my God, they're going to put him on chemotherapy. They're going to burn and damage cells. They should be on CBD oil or doing THC or some other natural. They could take 7 leaves a day minimum and do it that way in a salad or something.
Or load up on apricot seeds to get the vitamin D.
Oh yeah. Thank you, Zach. Apricot seeds were processed in Mexico. There was a special name that they used it, and we allowed them to bring it in as a medication. And I'm saying the wrong term because I'm wanting to say lisinopril, and it's not lisinopril. It's another medical term, and I forgot.
Loratril is one of the names of it, and I don't know.
Laetrile is one, and there was another one, and you had to go to Oklahoma. I believe it was Oklahoma to get a federal judge because they agreed to sign off on it because he was empathetic towards people that wanted to get the cancer treatments. So you had to go get the affidavit signed by him, special copies, go to Mexico, bring in 2,000 units, which you're allowed, which is like 3 months or 2,000 units. I actually processed a young man who brought some in one day. He was over a few, and I talked to a supervisor, says, hey, come on, it's for cancer treatment, let it go. Yeah, you're right. I just want to make sure I wasn't going to violate a rule or regulation at customs. Ha, 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 right? So no problem. Took a copy, signed off on it. It's got my signature on it. J. Carman 22201, my badge number. Very famous badge number now, I guess. And then I'd give him his stuff and he'd go about his way. But they had people coming from Tijuana off of buses that would come across smelling like cream corn, if you're familiar with the smell. And they're all kind of pale, pasty white looking, and they still got IVs still attached like PICC lines in their arms and stuff. It's very sad that people have to do that, but that's what they do. Even Coretta Scott King, who I met at the White House with her father, Martin Luther King Sr., was down in TJ, just like Steve McQueen went down there and got some illegal surgery that the guy wasn't qualified to do, and they removed a tumor or something out of his abdomen, and he ended up dying. Don't go to TJ, do something else. I mean, there's other ways to get stuff done. But
real quick, Ben Schwagel says, Bosk Rh negative blood sounds like it might be serpent seed. So maybe we can pull that together here with some more research. Look into the Aramaic translation of the Bible. Check out Zen Garcia. Thank you for that, Ben Schwagel. Randy Jones says Rh negative blood does not have the macaque gene, the monkey genome. Right. So where did it come from?
The rhesus monkey.
Yes.
Yeah, it's based on RH's rhesus monkey. So if it's not from the bloodline of the monkey, which all the other people may be connected to, that makes us extra special because we may have been planted in another way altogether.
Okay.
So,
and then Harchader, where we go one, we go all. Thank you for the super chat.
Oh yeah. I mean, we can go all kinds of stuff. Keep me on track because I'll get sidetracked or whatever.
Yeah. Well, here's something actually. Western Sunrise says, speaking of healing, I've always believed we can heal ourselves. Is that true? In your time at the government, did you ever come across any specific healing cures, or did you see any research on this particular thing? People healing themselves?
I'm trying to think because I was martial arts when I lived in Japan, and I studied Zen Buddhism, martial arts. I mean, I sat on the floor. I know Steven Seagal. He's a good guy. He's into stuff like that as well. Part of that is you eat close to the ground. That is the macrobiotic diet, eating close to the ground. So you're eating rice, strawberries,
food
fruits.
That's grown close to the ground. Okay.
Yeah, because you're getting the nutrients out of the ground versus eating a cow steak where it's going through the grass to the cow from the sun to the grass, it's 3 or 4 times removed or something.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're getting into the self-healing, it's supposed to be connected like that. I've tried it and I can't do it because I'm damaged. I got damaged. I think I was poisoned. Besides sucking up fumes at the border for 15 years, somebody suggested they may have put something in my food at one time, and it showed up like that. So I have to take testosterone treatments, to be honest with you.
Okay, all right.
And that's serious, because if you can't heal yourself, that's one way they can kill you, is to lower your testosterone rate, because you have to have 850 for a normal male, 850 to 1,000. If you're a 12, 13-year-old, you're exhibiting all kinds of hormonal changes and really high stuff. You're energetic. You're running around doing all kinds of stuff, sports or whatever. That's what they're after. They want somebody of that age bracket, because that's the highest hormonal level they can find. And if they're talking about reproducing, that would be a target age category. But the older people, they're doing something else. Because if I can't repair myself, I don't have enough testosterone in my system, and I'm just using myself as an example, then that could be a problem. And you could be walking around, you're all weak thinking you're going to have a heart attack. It's really weird. And I take so many supplements. I was telling Zach the same thing. I was taking so many supplements. I take like 3 handfuls every day. And people are complaining, oh, you take too many supplements. Well, at least I'll die healthy, if you want to take it to the sarcastic level. But
well, I do have a question for Zach. One of the things that Google has recently began to crack down on is the UFO stuff. I mean, you used to see a lot of UFO videos pushed on YouTube, suggested people, making videos about it, and they were fairly popular. But it seems like that has really dropped off. Is that something that they've been actively seeking to suppress, or is that something that they don't care about, or do you know?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like
there
it
you
might
go.
be collateral damage. Like, I haven't seen any announcements about how they're trying to go after UFO videos. So it just could be as a result of the algorithmic changes.
Right. Well,
can I interject on that? Because I reported stuff that was those photographs of a UFO up at China Lake, and I posted that on the internet, and it was getting deleted or removed.
Really?
The most recent one that they're publicizing was the Tic Tacs that they had off the San Diego coast a couple of years ago. And now they feel comfortable in getting it released because they got pilots. And when they asked Trump about if he believed the UFOs existed or whatever, he was deceptive when he answered the question. Just like all the other past presidents, they'll say it in different ways. They'll use colorful terms. They'll avoid it, sidestep it. And he did, and said, well, he puts a lot of faith in his pilots. So he believes his pilots were able to answer that more than he could have, because he wasn't there. So they're actually putting that out there, and I'm going, well, yeah, they have these things popping in and out, interdimensional, zip, 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 faster than you can see it. And they've got Google Earth have shown actual bases right off Malibu, the underground
I have
ocean.
seen that. Yeah, I've seen that.
And plus you've got the one at Suderland in Antarctica and so forth. So they are covering these things up. They don't want you to keep pursuing it. They don't want people to look at it. And every time I hear him, like Dr. Stephen Greer, I talked to him for 2 hours, and I'm looking at him eye to eye, less than 3 feet away, and I'm analyzing what he's saying. And he's been offered $10 million to stop what he's doing. And latest I heard, he was offered $1 billion. I said, you don't need people to land on the South White House lawn on the midnight shift. I've been there. I've been there on midnights, and I'd stand there and say, hey, it's a beautiful night. It's clear. Do it now. If you're going to do it now. I wouldn't tell anybody I would think about it. I'd just say, hey, look, I saw the movies, but if it's that big, it's going to have to land south of the ellipse, or south of the White House lawn on the ellipse, which is the area where the big park is south of the White House.
Okay.
Because all they could fit is a small helicopter for Marine One.
The question for me has always been, I think that a lot of what people see tends to be maybe just black budget craft, things that the government has not admitted to. And recently, the Navy just released patents for what is essentially like a gravity warp drive, which allows, a craft to move through space-time, basically, from point A to point B. But then the question becomes, where did that information come from? Was that developed by just really intelligent people, and they're just not allowing it to come out into the mainstream? Because like you said earlier, something like this, free energy or, means of transportation that were outside of the current system that we have, it would destroy the oil industry. It would destroy this system of commerce that we have set up and all these businesses. Go ahead, Zach.
Well, go ahead.
So there's a content creator on YouTube. It's fascinating. His name is Ken Wheeler. He's got a weird Greek name that he goes by on YouTube. But he is talking about the dielectric and magnetic fields from a Tesla standpoint. So apparently, when Tesla was developing his theories on dielectricity and magnetism, they were in direct conflict with Einstein. And what's really interesting is that Einstein was considered to be a fraud by a lot of the scientists at the time. And I've heard a lot of talk about how particle physicists are just absolutely insane. And according to Ken Wheeler, Tesla had the right idea. And a lot of these devices, if these UFOs exist, are theorized to be working off the extended Maxwell equations. Now, it's been postulated by a lot of UFOs and also by Ken that the actual Maxwell equations that were used to define the electric and magnetic fields, as we call them, are not the full versions. They're truncated.
Yeah.
They're missing terms. And so when you think about, well, how can these things exist? What you got to realize is that it's possible that physics took a left turn at the start of the 20th century and got derailed in order to hide the fact that there could have been physics that would have generated abundant energy sources, right? Like if you have a monopoly on water, then what you want to do is you want to create deserts everywhere. And that's the best way that I've been able to sort of go down in these thought experiments of how can these UFOs and all these free energy systems exist? Well, it turns out that there's a hole in the standard model, and this is a complaint. How do we bridge gravity and electromagnetism? Well, if you go back to the Tesla, model, they don't have this problem. They've got a fully descriptive view of the universe that doesn't require these particle and anti-particle pairs or this quantum soup or any of this quantum foam which is basically the ether, but they can't call it the ether because ether is a bad word, right? So they keep on dancing around it, and they use all these different terminologies in order to talk about the same thing.
So you're talking about Theoria Apophysis, isn't that it?
Yeah.
That's his name. Okay. I mean, I subscribe to him. So, I mean, I just never heard him called Ken Wheeler before.
Yeah, I can never remember his content creator. I can remember Ken Wheeler, and he's had he's actually developed a book on magnetism, and he's now in the 4th edition, and he gives it away for free. And
wow.
The things that he says are really amazing. I'll give you an example of how broken the standard model of physics is. The standard model of physics says that the speed of light cannot be broken. But according to Ken, there's these things called X waves that travel at 1.3 times the speed of light. And physics just puts their fingers in the air and goes, nah, it doesn't happen. And they just completely ignore it. If you go to Wikipedia and you look up X waves, they actually admit that, yes, these X waves go faster than the speed of light, which can't be possible according to physics because nothing goes faster than the speed of light. And what exactly is the speed of light? Well, according to Ken Wheeler, it is not actually a speed limit. It's actually the rate of induction. And what's really interesting is if you look at a lot of these patents that talk about like these exotic propulsion systems, what they say is that what they're doing is that they're changing the density of this ether space or the quantum foam, whatever you want to call it. And as a result, the speed of light will speed up or slow down depending on the density of the medium that exists in that space.
Okay, awesome. Real quick, couple of quick thank yous. EO2 Dave says the portal must remain closed. This is when we were talking about portals a few minutes ago. Western Sunrise says that Ken Wheeler is worth checking out. Yeah, his videos are fascinating, you guys. He's also really into lenses and cameras. He talks about them a lot, but I prefer the magnetism ones. And then Eminem, thank you very much for that very generous super chat. Kia Ora, Red Pill 78, and all patriots. Can someone slap Schiff and Pelosi for me, Kerr?
I'll do it.
Yeah, there you go. John will do it next time he's there.
Hey, there was a video I came across. I was trying to find it until Windows decided to do an update at 3 a.m, and I lost the tab. But there was a guy who actually developed a solid UFO model that he actually transmitted and had it go interdimensional. And when it starts to wave like water, that he's changed the actual structure, which goes to the Bob Lazar structure of the saucers and the special polonium-238 that they developed into the other device, which is electromagnetics. And I'm not a scientist. I'm just telling you what I've come across. And I lost it. I could probably go back and research it, but I'm telling that so that the listeners could probably find it faster. Maybe they know the name of the guy. Zach?
Well, what I found was really interesting is that if you take electrons and you start jiggling them at 1 trillion times a second, the terahertz frequency,
Right.
but they move so fast, they actually generate negative mass. And this isn't fringe science. This is like published science that you can generate negative mass by just jiggling back electrons back and forth. So, negative mass exists, and it generates these really weird, phenomenon like light distortion.
Like what they're messing around with CERN, right? They're trying to speed stuff up, negative matter, positive matter, and then opening up stargates and all these other things. But every time they come up with a scientist, when Tesla died, these agents would show up and they would steal all the information and take it with them because they know about it. Everybody who put in a copyright or a trademark for it, they got blocked, and then they still lost their materials and research materials. There's people here that know how to do it. I think Bob Lazar could do it if he was given the right materials. He could do it himself. But it's too expensive to make it.
I spoke when I met Bob Lazar. We talked specifically about the ECAT, which is what Zach and I discussed last time he was on the program, and he said that he had replicated the process there in his laboratory. It wasn't giving off a ton of extra energy, but it was definitely extra energy.
Cool. So that means he's got some way of maybe bypassing the expensive plutonium U-235, 238 piece that they had to shave down to an ungodly amount to the size of a baseball or whatever it was. And then that's just a starter. That's all it is. It's got 100 million miles on the engine type thing. But
he's done some pretty amazing stuff. I saw some of his experiments. It was pretty cool.
What gets me is everybody pulls up these indicators, and that's part of what I do is I profile the government, I profile these agencies, and when I see them lying about something, it fits a profile. So when they said, they deleted his information, that he even went to school, that he even worked at Area 51, I said, well, that's an indicator. It's obvious what they're doing. If they had just left it alone, it would have gone another direction. But they're actively worried. They don't want that stuff to get out.
Of course, of course.
I want to reference people to look at that Lacerda interview. It's like 2 hours, and it's connected to this other guy, Thomas Edwin Costello, who actually worked at the base. And if you work at a base like that, the background check is, do you have any family members? No. You don't have any relatives. So if something happens to you or somebody eats you, they don't have to report. Nobody's going to miss you. That's kind of a scary job. And there was one whistleblower that supposedly came out and they shadowed his face and his voice. And he claimed he's sorry he knows what he knows today because it changed everything. Like those 2 or 3 alien interviews, The first one from Victor from Area 51, ONI, that couldn't be decrypted. I tried it myself through some people I know. Then there was a second one, and then the one with the real ugly-looking, scaly-looking guy. I listened to the questions that these guys ask, and the questions didn't match somebody of a certain experience in government. He was asking the wrong questions. You know what I mean? So he'd go off on a tangent. So it was kind of interesting.
I've never seen it. Maybe we can get a link for it. Oh, you're getting a phone call.
Oh, somebody's watching me. Uh-oh.
Hey, John, you mentioned that there were different types of aliens.
Right. 57 supposedly, according to the U.S. Air Force and other contacts I've had. But I don't think there's just 57. I think they're just using that as a round figure, but give or take.
Is that supposed to be information from like an official Air Force manual? You quote from the Air Force?
No, I'm talking about actual Air Force personnel.
Okay, so an individual in the Air Force.
We've actually had Air Force personnel testify before Congress that talked about the ICBM missile sites being shut down by UFOs. And I've had a few Air Force contacts, which I told you about earlier, plus the meeting with President Eisenhower, the Val Thor contact, the meetings in the desert, and I did mention the treaties. Did I not mention the treaties that the presidents have with the certain group
No,
of
you
aliens?
haven't, but we have 5 minutes, so please go into it.
I'll run it real quick. Supposedly, since Truman was contacted or Eisenhower, because of the nuclear blasts that were being used, they intervened and made contact. So we're supposed to be exclusive of other nations, which I sort of have a hard time believing, because you got India, China, Russia, and a couple other countries that have nuclear power, that we will not use nuclear energy in certain circumstances. And every time there's a new president, the treaty has to be agreed upon by these alien groups, whoever they are. They could be the Federation for all we know. But there is an alien presence on the planet. So if we go around doing white sands tests, it's going to affect the interdimensional breakup or the fiber of the planet, which affects them too. So they're not going to let that happen. They're going to intervene. They've learned that they can do it. So unless there's a special war going on, I don't even know if we could complete an actual attack right now with something. So if you do less than that, like the Moabs, the mother of all bomb type things that was used in Syria a year or so ago, then that's different. It doesn't affect other aliens. So as long as we don't affect them, we go about doing our stuff. But that's interesting, because that's why the presidents will not talk about it. If you ask a direct question, you're not going to get a direct answer. If it was me and I was president, and I wasn't being blocked by some other group of people threatening to kill me or something, then I would say, do you believe in them? Yeah, I do. Next question. Do you believe they exist? Yes. Are there UFOs? Yes. What else do you want to keep asking? Just yes, 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 yes. I mean, who's afraid to do that? It doesn't make sense.
What do you think about the fact that President Trump has created the Space Force?
Well, there you go. That's just a continuation. We have the International Space Station. We have Russian cosmonauts coming up to work with us. They're doing all kinds of interesting scientific experiments, because the suit that Valiant Thor had was made of a material that I'll use this bead necklace as an example, where the molecules are lined up a certain way, like a spider's web or a silk web coming from a silkworm, which means they're lined up. They're 100 to 1,000 to whatever times stronger, as opposed to our jumbled up molecules on the stuff that we use and wear today, or that's in our fabric, in our metals and things like that. It's not the same. If you get it lined up like that, it's impenetrable. And that's what they make these spaceships out of, or these UFOs. They're solid material out of one piece, just like their costumes or whatever they were. But I was going off on a tangent. But if he has the Space Force, it's like the next level. Oh, if you got a Space Force, what about the base on the moon? The moon is not a moon. It's a hollowed out base. What about the buildings that the astronauts were told to keep secret? Those guys are going to go to their graves not being able to say that what they saw. And we've got people like Captain K, what's his name, Kramer, that claims he went to service on the Mars as a Marine.
I've heard of him, yeah.
And he's got problems with his story, because I've dissected some of the stuff he said, and I said, wait a minute. If they could breathe air on Mars, why did he have to have his body altered in any way so he could breathe the air? And if he did, they claimed that he had to do regression to come back to the Earth. Then he would have to have his body altered again to back when he lost 20 years. So he's claiming he's a time traveler, basically.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Well, okay, well, we've got 1 minute left. This is a huge subject. We can probably talk about it for forever. But, John, what do you want to leave the audience with?
Don't be a whistleblower when you grow up unless you've got an attorney and you've got millions of dollars in a bank account.
Where can people go find you?
I have a website that's been attacked by the government, customscorruption.com. I've got a Patreon page. I've got a Facebook page with my name, john.a.carman, or you can email me. Same thing, john.a.carman, CARMAN @gmail.com. And of course, on a couple of YouTube interviews and other people, and then hopefully I'll be listed somewhere on your videos.
You will be, yep.
And archived. In case something happens to me, at least I'll have it on the record.
It will be there in
Secret
perpetuity.
Service guys.
Can we put his URL on the description of the
I've got your customscorruption.com. I'm putting that right there.
Okay.
And then
great.
I'll put it in the description of the video as well. And then I will also pull up your Twitter, and I will drop that in the chat box for everybody, and we'll put that in the description of the video as well. Tanette Booth just said, please have these guys on again. Thank you very much for that, Tanette. And then, Zach, what would you like to leave the audience with?
So help keep me alive because I'm fighting dragons. You guys can do that by following me on Twitter. My username is Perpetual Maniac. So, or you can type in Zak Vorhies and find me there. So.
All right. Excellent. Well, everybody, we've reached the end of the regularly scheduled broadcast. I want to thank everyone for joining me, and thank you to my guests for being here as well. Tell Horton I said hi. John, tell Horton I said hi. And as always, this has been Red Pill 78. I am the Corruption Detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.
Thanks, RP. Thanks, Zach.
We'll see ya.
You're going crazy.